Indigenous art. I am your host, Rob Lee. And today I am super excited to welcome my next guest, who is a Harlem-born artist who began his art career as a graffiti artist, studied at the Art Students League of New York, and earned a BFA at the School of Visual Arts. He's also exhibited at various galleries, featured on major media outlets, and worked with notable clients such as ESPN, Red Bull, Nike, Chainz, the Versace Mansion, Fantasia Barrino, and Sony Music. His works are in the permanent collections of Viacom and Hallmark Cards. Please welcome Kip Omolade. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me, Rob. Love being here.
I gotta say, you look like one of my doppelgangers. I know you get it all the time. I know you get it all the time.
Sometimes
you get the Jeffrey Wright thing. Do you get the Jeffrey Wright thing?
We're right there. Also, I get Derek Fisher and Common.
Yo, you like the three guys?
Yeah.
I did a talk recently for Creative Mornings, and it was about talking about truth, right? And I think one of the best ways and one of the things that's been effective for me in kind of getting past nerves and creating like sort of a common ground with folks is using humor. And I was like, since you all are my new friends, I'm going to tell you guys the truth. I give myself my own nicknames. Here's a few. And and one of them was Young Fish. And my buddy said, one of my buddies was like, one of my painter buddies was like, you got Lawrence Fishburne energy. You're like a young fish. I was like, are you insulting me or is this?
So like, yeah, I see the young fish in you. Yeah.
So, I want to start off, and it's the actual interview here with, and again, thanking you for coming on here and spending the time. And before we get too deep, could you share like your story, in a very like sort of introductory, like setting the stage sort of way? And if you could include in there, what was your first experience with art? And I got a couple bullet points after that, but first experience with art, whether it be, I was sketching when I was younger, or I really saw this painting that had a profound impact on me when we visited museums back in the day. So if you will, share a little bit about that.
Oh, of course. My relationship with my mother really built the foundation for art. When I was born in Harlem, homeless. We lived throughout the city. She was a member of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. So she was always involved with culture and civil rights, women's rights, and a real deep connection to art. She also was an artist on the side. She made these collages of African masks. Yeah. So that was like one of the first times I got a sense of, oh, this is what art is. Yeah. She also bought me comic books because I was really heavy into comic books. And one of the first comics that she bought me was a Spider-Man comic book. So comic books coupled with representations of the African diaspora, plus me coming up during early hip hop, graffiti, rap, all of this stuff kind of defined what I'm doing now. And she made it possible for me to go to the Children's Art Carnival in Harlem, which was a program for young folks, the Cooper Union program in New York, School of Visual Arts. She was just, and she is, she's my heroine, I should say. And it's funny. It's not funny. She, yesterday she was admitted to the hospital. She just turned 80 a couple of months ago. So she's doing well right now, but, throughout this interview, you'll probably hear me talk about her because she's on my mind right now.
I definitely hear that. And thank you. Like, I think it's always worth taking that sort of, let's go down memory lane real quick and kind of see where some of those introductory seeds were kind of planted. And I always talk about, I wanted to be an illustrator. I wanted to draw comics. So, right there. And, some of those early gifts, it's like, all right, how can we get him to do something? And it was like, here's these like books, here's these like how to draw this and color pencils and the tools to kind of make your own stuff. And that was the thing I was into. And and that may not have been the space that I ultimately would go into later, but that sort of creative sensibility and recognizing creativity and recognizing art was important for me as a kid. And I think my parents were, and even extended relatives were a part of that and saying, all right, here, you should have these materials. We're not quite sure what you're going to do with them, but you should have them. Or even my dad, this is going to be so corny, but I don't know if you remember the Wildcats book from like the early 90s.
Yeah, that's Jim Lee?
Yes. So
yeah,
I have a younger brother, and I remember my dad, he got us like the first 5 issues. And kids, right? We did not take care of those comics. So it's just like, well, I guess there's the cover of Wildcats #1. Oh, there's page 6. And, and now I'm looking back on it like, damn it. But then I had a little bit of a like awareness of that, I suppose.
You weren't a connoisseur yet.
I wasn't a connoisseur yet, but I do have my old art bag, and it's got like all of my #1 issues and the plastic and all of that there. So I'm in a better space now.
Cool.
So let's talk about like themes and purpose and just some of the ideas that are like baked into your work or what have you in your most recent body of works. I think that's, always going to be like top of mind. So, when we were talking a little bit before we got started, and, I never shy away from this idea that, people talking about cities and folks like myself and you that they don't have the knowledge in the background because they don't give us a chance to really speak on it. And that's what's baked into this. So I'm always looking to speak to anyone who I think is doing really great work, has an interesting story, and try to facilitate them sharing said story. So that's kind of what's baked in, and with the purpose, my why, if you will. So, from that standpoint, could you speak on that a bit?
Yes. One of the things that was difficult for me being at the School of Visual Arts, and even dealing with comic books. I had an internship at Marvel Comics, by the way, when I was about 17 years old, was that there was a lack of representation. And I knew early that there's something wrong here because of the way I was brought up, where there was a real focus on Black pride, Black imagery. But when coming to the art world, you're not seeing yourself represented in a way that's powerful. So when I'm creating my sculptures and my paintings, I'm thinking about now, I'm thinking about the past, I'm thinking about the future, I'm thinking about young folks who are seeing my art. Can they see themselves in my art? I hope that they see powerful imagery and how powerful they can be. Because even now in a lot of contemporary art, representations of Black folks are still very narrow, in some places rather racist. So my focus has always been to create a positive, super powerful imagery that someone can latch onto. Yeah. I think that's the importance of movies like Black Panther, where you can see a hero do something. I think imagery is really important. We look at Obama's campaign, and that hope poster was very powerful. Juxtapose that, you get MAGA, obviously, but these images can kind of encapsulate a movement, encapsulate the way people think about life. Yeah. So my thing is to take everything that I know about art, graffiti, comic books, painting from life, sci-fi, mixed with an African identity, and put it all into one imagery. One kind of imagery.
I love that. And see, you're cheating. You're cheating. You answered another one of those questions I have later. Like, do you feel your perspective is presented? I was like, oh man. I was like, he's an overachiever here. No, but it's big. And I think, you want folks doing work that is representative of what they see now, what they've experienced in the past, and what they aspire for, I suppose, in the future. And, maybe like hitting that next person, like, here's something that you can take from me, and maybe that inspires your work or inspires the way you're thinking or what have you. Like, that's, it's archival in some ways. And I remember it's a reversion of this quote, but it's talking about like how, maybe imagery, I suppose, where how we view things, sort of like trauma and all of these different things, it's generations in the past and the generations in the future, what have you. And I think when messaging is a part of that, so we just see ourselves depicted in this way, it has an effect. Oh, this is all we'll ever be. This is all we are. Yeah. And when there is a bone thrown here and there, it's like, no, we're better than just a bone. Indeed. And we're the whole skeleton. If you want to use that analogy.
Indeed. I look at hip hop music in particular, and how it created a narrative. It created a imagery that young folks followed. I remember when hip hop, like rap, first came out. I think the saddest thing was for me, it was the use of the N-word. Yeah. And how the use of the N-word changed the way people were thinking about themselves. You could use lyrics from a and I love rap, from a standard song, and the Proud Boys could play the same song and they wouldn't miss a step. It'd be the same kind of messaging. So like music, like TV, movies, I think art plays a part, and it can really shape minds in a positive direction. Yeah.
And one of the things that comes out of doing this, kind of speaking on it, where this podcast started as a response to that sort of like rhetoric of, this is all this city has to offer. And I'm like, just rats? All right, then cool. But really not cool. And, that really, got under my skin, and kind of seeing like not enough people like, as a New Yorker, people talk ill about New York. It's like, nah, you got to stand on that. It's kind of the same vibe. It needs to be more of that sort of pride. And I recall talking with a friend who's in marketing, and I was just like, do you think this is something I can do? I could stretch out. I can get, maybe 100 interviews. And what shocked me, she was like, I'd be surprised if you can get 20. We don't have talent here. That was kind of the idea. And it's sort of the messaging that you hear over and over. And I knew that she didn't really believe that, but I thought, maybe she was just speaking of, this is how we're depicted. This is how we're presented. So if you can't beat them, join them. And my natural inclination is fight. I can't get 20. I'm going to get 200, and that's kind of the energy there. And, being able to do that sort of work, have those sort of conversations, and be able to connect with folks like you,
And I think it's like I said, I think this is a tremendous resource that you're creating. It's a counterpart to a lot of the ratchetness that's out there. It is one of the differences in early hip hop. There was always this balance. There's a balance now, but I don't think the positive side is shown as much. Yeah. And like I said, even with fine art, if you go to an art fair, a lot of the themes are the same when it comes to Black folks. It's our relationship to white folks. It's our relationship to slavery, and that stuff is fine. I think that's all well and good. But we need a counterpoint to that. That gives us a better sense of a dynamic, thredimensional culture, people.
Yeah. Yeah, I talk about it in connection with folks in like media and film, because that's kind of the export at times. You touched on rap. So if there's a community that is not aware of what Black people are engaging in, or what a certain community is engaging in, then whatever the sort of media and entertainment exports, whether it be fine art, whether it be music, whether it be movies. Right. Oh, those are my Black friends right there. Right. Will Smith is your Black friend? How does that work? So if it's depicted in this way that it's either limiting, like when we talk about Baltimore, we got crime, police, drugs. That's kind of it. And we have more than that. It's a fully fledged city that is close to 70% Black. So we're more than that. And it's like, where are the Black weirdos at? I know they're here. I might be one of them. I see them regularly.
Right.
And those are the people, those are the stories that I'm very interested in. So, so this is in the same vein. So from your standpoint, and maybe it's more in this question, but do you believe that artists, however that's defined, as loosely as it can be defined, have a responsibility to kind of address and maybe comment on political or social issues in their work?
I think if you're equipped to do that,
sure,
I would say definitely. I think there's some folks who out there who shouldn't say anything because they don't know what they're talking about. I think it's weird to put the mic I think it's weird for a politician to go to a Cardi B and ask her a question about the community. That's just straight like that. That's an insult.
Yeah.
I think that's not fair to her. I think when I see that kind of stuff, I'm like, nah. But if you are well aware of stuff, I think the more you know, the more inclined you are going to organically talk about important issues.
Yeah.
And I see the transformation with certain people when they get out with they start off in one space. Let's say like a guy like Method Man. Mm-hmm. I'm big on rap right now for some reason. A guy like Method Man who comes out grimy and he's a Wu-Tang, but later on he cultivates himself. He's an actor now. He's broadened his horizons. I think once you start seeing the world and you start seeing the impact of what you're saying and what you're doing, you're forced to. You've got to change. It's rare that you would see someone who would conduct themselves in the same exact way. So I think the more you know, you're gonna say that you're gonna talk about, okay, no, this is different now. The way I move now. I think Black folks need to do this, or I'm seeing the world in this type of way. Or I think this politician is good for us because of X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
But like I said, if you don't know anything, if you're
I'm going to set this one out.
If you're a Herschel Walker, yes, sit this one out.
but it makes me think of that Chappelle bit when it's like they immediately go to Ja Rule. What does Ja have to say? It's like, I don't care what Ja has to say.
Right. But that's the insult.
Yeah.
Because no other kind of people are going to put up with that kind of stuff. And that's the representation of Black folks that you're trying to change. I'm trying to change. Either organically or purposefully, like we know that that's not right. Why would you ask this person that? Or why are you going to him? I know the answer to this, or I know 10 people who have a better grasp on, and they know that. I think the media knows. Okay, let's just ask X, Y, and Z because he's gonna. And it's no disrespect to a Cardi B or whomever. Yeah. But it's that you could go to a KRS-One and ask him a question, or Chuck D, or even a Kendrick Lamar, someone like that. You're going to get a more profound answer. Yeah.
You get something that, doesn't hit a certain niche or have you. It's like, we can be broader. Like, like if you're talking with Kendrick has certain accolades that have gone so crossover in some regards of like, huge awards, Grammys, like, was it Pulitzer or something? It's like you've gotten these really like broad awards that multiple communities are listening to what you may have to say. And especially within that most recent album, some of those things are kind of discussed, especially within the sort of Black community or what have you, that I'm like, okay, let's actually now start the dialogue versus something in my lane. I think as you were touching on a little bit with, I look at other podcasts and it's like, why is it this? Why is it just ratchet barbershop sort of nonsense? And there's a space for that, but it's presented as this is well thought out. This is informational versus entertainment. And it's pollution in some ways.
Yeah. And I think it's a fetish of what people think, of what white folks think Black culture is all about. I think that's what makes rap so enticing, because a lot of white folks, I say in the Midwest, or just throughout the world in general, this is what real Black is like. Curse, you play basketball, shoot dice. Oh, you're from Baltimore. It's like The Wire. How many drugs have you sold?
Right.
So and then you come out and they say, well, you're not really black. Like we want to see like real black.
I've heard that. I've heard that I don't have enough grime on me. I've
Right.
heard that I don't fit the thing, and it's like, yo, I'm a 6'4", 300-pound black dude from East Baltimore. What do you want? You should because I'm smiling doesn't mean you shouldn't be like, oh shit, he's huge.
Right. Right.
And it's interesting because I do, outside of this podcast, I do a movie review podcast, and I think that it's really funny, like kind of what we've been touching on and ping ponging on. We're going to move to process and questions around the work actually in a moment, but the last review that I did was CB4. So there you go. I'll make sure you're able to check it out. But
yes.
It definitely keys in on that thing, and that movie's 30 years old.
Yes. It's still relevant.
100%. Yeah. So, in moving into sort of like questions around process and questions around sort of some of the projects you've worked on. So, could you tell us about like your process, like in your recent work, like how you go about it? Where do you start off? What's something that's in the middle? And I hear about two things that artists run into: when to start and like, are you finished yet? So talk about those different stages within the process.
Okay. So with the mask that I work on, I start with a mold of a model's face, and I make a chrome sculpture out of that mold. And that's part of the most exciting. That's the most exciting part of the journey in a lot of ways, because other people are involved and it's a communal kind of thing going on. I don't know what the person's face is going to look like. If you frown, that frown gets frozen in time. You smile, that expression gets frozen as well. Once I had the chrome sculpture, a lot of times I'm just asking myself questions. What will it look like if I take this thing outside? If I go to Times Square with this? Or what if I enclose it and fill it with different colors? Or what if I keep it as minimal as possible? What does that look like? Yeah. Once I ask those questions and I'm thinking about what kind of mood I'm in or what I'm trying to express, I start making photographs, hundreds of photographs. And from the photographs, I start painting. And this is when things just really slow down to almost a grinding halt. Recently, I went to the Metropolitan Museum of Art, and there's an exhibit about African civilization where the exhibit draws a link between ancient Egyptian art plus other African art or Benin art, Ife art. So like in the background, the mask that I'm working on, the painting I'm working on has all of these small faces of famous sculptures. There's King Tut, there's Nefertiti, there's Benin, there's all kinds of stuff going on. So I wanted to do a painting that kind of represented African masterpieces, African sculptures, but put it all into one piece. So with this one, I'm thinking about the African diaspora. Sometimes I'm thinking about just a color, like, you know what? I'm in the mood for blue, so I'm just going to get into a minimalist blue thing. But this one is fully detailed, 10 foot tall. It's taking a lot of time to do.
It's funny you mentioned the size there, because I have a question related to that. Okay. So in thinking back on like work that you've worked on, do you think that if a piece, depending on the piece, and maybe if one comes to mind, but this would look better in a larger scale, or this would not look better, but this would hit different. This would have a different impact at a different scale, at a different way of like kind of creating and processing that work. Like, what's your opinion on like a piece that may have changed? Like, I did this, this was maybe this size, but now maybe looking at it as a sort of a 10-foot piece, this would have so much more impact. Talk about that a bit.
Yeah. It's funny you mention that, because I did a piece that was similar to this, but it had images of Times Square, but it was much smaller. And I'm not sure if people really saw the imagery that I painted, because I was painting with these small, tiny brushes. So I thought about, well, what if I enlarged that, and then instead of Times Square, like I said, imagery from Africa. The other thing I think about is, where do I want the pieces to be, and what would make the most sense? Sometimes it's better to work smaller because a space might be more confined. Mm-hmm. A lot of times my collectors are in smaller spaces, so it makes way more sense to create smaller pieces. But right now, I'm in a mode where I'm thinking about bigger is better.
Yeah.
I want to make a more impactful statement. I'm thinking more about museum shows, places that people can see the stuff from afar, and it'll have an impact. And if they come up close, it'll have another kind of impact, where you'll have to slow down and look at all the tiny details.
Yeah.
So it depends on what I'm trying to do. I think what I'm trying to express in terms of detail.
No, I appreciate that. And being able to check out different exhibits here, and that's I think an experience that's going to change, you know, with COVID and all of that. And I know that there've been more like sort of virtual museums and things of that nature where that experience is different. Like, you know, a camera might be able to go into sort of like, you know, a structure or something like that. And it's like, oh, I can see this differently and get to that sort of granularity. It's like, wow, you stitched that? You know, you get into it that way.
It's funny you said that. Recently, I've been doing reels on Instagram. Yeah. And I've been doing that. I've been getting the camera as close as possible, then panning out. Yeah. People are saying, "Oh wow, there's a person there." And they can really see. Yeah, you are absolutely. You're right here, man.
I dig it. So in going to it, because I know that, you know, earlier you were mentioning like your mother has like a huge influence in sort of like some of those early art sensibilities, and even carrying on now as far as things that you've experienced, right? Which individuals, like, and maybe ones that somebody wouldn't expect, like, man, I really got inspired by this chef one time, and that really made, you know, so which individuals, like in art, writing, and other creative fields, have had an impact on your artistic style or perspective?
Takashi Murakami. I don't know if you know Takashi Murakami. Yeah. No. Takashi Murakami's been one of the greatest influences on my career, and as an artist, because he's essentially an outsider, with his own point of view of Japan, and he made his work attractive to European American buyers and dealers, but still maintain a sense of Japan. And then the other thing that's so special about him is that he also was into comic books, and the main difference between he and Roy Lichtenstein and Warhol was that they took comic books, but he actually was drawing. And so same thing with me. I was drawing comic books. To me, it's a difference when someone actually engages in the work, and then you can draw upon it. You know, I'm gonna take this part here. I'm gonna take some anime from here, and I'm gonna take whatever influence from Jim Lee or for me it would be John Byrne, George Perez, Michael Golden, the way they painted metallic surfaces. Yeah. Love the way this person drew Colossus. So a lot of early comic book artists would, you may not see it right away with the work, but they were very influential. There's a Japanese artist, another one, Sorayama, who does these metallic women with airbrushing. He was a major influence. Most people would say, like, if they see my work, they would say Jeff Koons, and Jeff Koons is a somewhat of an influence, and Chuck Close is a major influence, but really it's Takashi Murakami and Sorayama.
Nice. Nice. And for context, my favorite guy is Colossus. My favorite X-Men is Colossus. So shout out.
Really? Okay.
Oh yeah. Me and my brother like those sort of like, it's like they're the Capadonna of the X-Men. It's like my brother likes Nightcrawler, and I like Colossus. It's like, man, the ink is still wet on your contracts, your X contracts. So I got two more real questions, and then I got those rapid fire questions. And I want to get a sense on, like, you know, working with clients. Like, is there a certain criteria that comes to mind when, you know, someone approaches you? It's like, hey, you know, we're Sony, we're Nike, we're whoever, you know, that we would love to work with you. You know, what kind of like sort of processing goes on in your mind as to, all right, who do I want to align with what I'm doing? You know, because it's a lot to be said about that. You know what I mean? Where people say, oh, I just go after the biggest contract. I've heard that from people before, and I'm like, wow, that is, your work is not that type of work. I don't know. So what is your sort of criteria when evaluating potential opportunities?
Usually I say no, just off the bat, because I'm into my own thing. I just say no. But if it's interesting and if it aligns with what I'm doing, then I'll take part in it. And if there's some kind of relate, so normally I don't do like collaborations, and I don't do I can't even think of the word, but normally I don't paint other people. So, but 2 Chainz reached out to me. And he was really nice. He was a really cool dude. Came to my house, came to my studio, was really respectful. Did a painting of he and his wife for their wedding at the Versace Mansion in Miami. Nice. That was an organic kind of thing. He introduced me to Swiss Beats. It was it was really cool. But there's other folks that automatically I would just say no. There's been offers for NFTs, and I'm like, no. I don't want to do NFTs. People talk about AI. No, because my thing is, I'm not trying to bet against myself.
Yeah,
I'm trying to do something that conflicts with what I love, which is paint on canvas. That's how I want people to experience my work. Or if they buy a print, that's cool. But so like I see people on Instagram who use AI, and the AI that they're doing is better than the stuff that they're painting by hand. And I was like, you're really killing yourself. So I don't engage in that kind of stuff. But for clients, usually I would say no, unless it makes a lot of sense and it jives with what I'm doing.
It's very, very similar when folks come to me and, hey, we would love to align, blah, blah, blah. You can do the storytelling, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, that's cool. Which version of this do you want? Do you want me Deion Sanders, hired gun sort of thing? Or do you want me? Because what is me comes with me, not this sort of, you're going to write the questions and I'm a black face kind of helping you get over in the urban demo. That's not what it is. And there have been some of those things that I'm like, that's a nice number, but I'm going to have to decline that. That doesn't really fit with what I'm doing. And I'd rather kind of keep some of that sort of credibility that's there. There's a degree of being contrived and recognizing that, I'm an outsider, and I have folks who have a really strong arts pedigree that tell me all the time, art journalists and so on. They're like, you're in this scene, right? I was like, no, I'm not. It's like, you are though. And it's like, oh, okay. Appreciate it. But still kind of feeling that. So I'm very aware when someone reaches out with a number and it's like, we're trying to tap into the podcast market, and I do consulting in this lane as well. And it's like, I know what the whole thing is. I know the analytics. I'm a data analyst by day, so I know all of those things. I can paint a story for you, but having to be very mindful of what one is worth in that regard, or what have you. To what degree does one kind of sell parts of why they do a certain thing, why they're approaching their work? How do you sell off those pieces? Those are the things I'm always sort of thinking about now that I'm getting this sort of credibility or this sort of awareness and acknowledgement that I would imagine a lot of artists run into all the time, because it takes a lot of courage to go into being a creator and, having hat in hand sometimes to try to get funding and so on.
Yeah, I'm just scared to waste my time. That's the biggest fear, that right now I want to make the most impactful statements possible, the most impactful art possible. And if it's through a client, that's wonderful. Yeah. But if it's wasting time, and because the other part of collaboration sometimes is that you're dealing with someone who's next to the man, that's next to the man, that's next to the man, that's next to the man, who by the time someone makes a decision, everything's thrown off, and that person who you're dealing with can't even really make a decision. I wasted a lot of time with quote unquote collaborations.
That's I was like, can we get to the next person?
Right.
that wild blonde CC.
Right.
So with that, it kind of leads into this last real question. But it's more of almost a shameless plug. It's like a pre-shameless plug. In terms of future projects that are coming up, what's coming up in the next couple of months or what have you, that's on your mind, that's on tap.
I'm going to be in a group show with I think it's the Harmon Gallery in the Lower East Side. I think that's the name of the gallery. Some fellow artists, the names will escape me, but that'll be later on, I think, at the end of the summer. And then I'm working out a deal with a French gallery, but we haven't finalized anything, so I'm scared to even say anything yet. So those are like the two things. And then, like I said, the biggest thing right now is I'm working on this painting. I haven't found a space for it. It's too big for both of the galleries I just mentioned. Yeah. So right now it's just really working on these large scale pieces. Yeah. And yeah, the two shows coming up.
I mean, that's what it is. It's like we're still in the beginning of the year. So it's just like, look, I'm out here prepping. I got painting. Yeah. I got 10-foot, I got gargantuan paintings to do. And that's what it's going to be. Yeah. Yeah. So with that, I want to move into these rapid fire questions, and then we'll be done. We'll shameless plug it out, and then we'll be done. You know, I can order myself Greek food, and you can get back to painting your like Titan paintings. All right. So here's the first one. What is in your opinion, what comes top of mind, what is the most valuable piece of advice that you've ever received regarding your work?
Don't bet against yourself. Finish what you start.
Love that. Who is the artist that made you fall in love with art?
John Byrne, comic book artist.
So you mentioned you might be in your sort of blue phase earlier. Like, I might just want to work in this color for a bit.
Yeah.
What is your favorite color combination to work with?
Orange and blue or pink and blue.
So you're in Harlem, right? And
no, I was born in Harlem. Born in Harlem.
Okay. So in that sort of Jersey, New York, what are the gems for you? What are the hidden gems for you? Like, yeah, you got to get this pita from here. Yeah, you got to get a slice from there. Where are your spots?
Oh man, that is a great question. See, I haven't. I don't know.
Well, and it doesn't have to necessarily be food either. It could just be like, this is a spot that I really like, that's really dope, that matches my sensibilities. Like, I like certain places that have like a mix. So there's a place it's a place called Good Neighbor here in Baltimore, that they're more of like a design shop, but they happen to have really good coffee, and people deem it as a coffee shop. And I have to remind them, I was like, no, this is the design place that has these art magazines and all of that stuff that makes a good cup of coffee.
There was this bar, Pecoue, Pecoue, which they make these really good. I had like the best drink of my life there. They've closed down, but they made this drink was like the best drink I've ever had in my life. My friend Sean, he would always tell me this place. I forgot the name.
It's funny. As a person who, like right now, I was entertaining, right? And I had some folks coming from out of town and doing these interviews. And one of my buddies came down from Philly, and I was like, yeah, let's go to dinner. You know, you bring my partner, we can all just kind of kick it. And then we go to my buddy's place who owns this restaurant, and we get the chef's table. So we're right there at the window seeing everything that's happening. So right there. It's already looking baller. And they're like, oh, the great Rob Lee is here. Your drink is here, sir. I have a drink on the menu. Oh. So it looked even more baller. It's like, oh, well, three of the finest Rob Lees coming over. I was like, oh, you guys have shifted the glasses on these. And just the feedback has been really great. It was one dude that I interviewed, dude named Andre Maslin. He emailed me before the interview. And he was like, yo, are you the Rob Lee from the menu at the place Forge? So I was like, oh, hey, I'm the same guy. I was like, yeah, I came up with that drink.
That's baller. I haven't had any drinks or food named after me. That's true baller status.
I want to have that.
I will say in Brooklyn, there used to be a place on Franklin and Eastern Parkway that made these really good oxtails. I used to love going there. I don't know if it's still there or not.
You got to pop over to Cuts and Slices, man. Get that oxtail pizza.
Cuts and Slices?
Yeah.
Oxtail pizza?
Yeah, it's a chili oxtail pizza. They're brothers, too.
Sounds scary.
So this is the last real question I got. I mean, the last rapid fire question I got for you. I have to ask it because I think it's a little trolly. I went through an index, right, of different comic characters. And when you get to the Bs, especially in DC, right, everyone is Black this, Black Snow, Black Avenger, whatever, right? There you go. What is your favorite Black comic character, preferably one that does not have Black in their name?
Storm.
Boom.
From next.
Done.
Hands down. Yeah, super powerful. Storm was from day one. And maybe because my mom is such a powerful woman, seeing a powerful African woman with Storm, hands down.
We got it. So with that, I think it's a good spot for us to wrap. I'm going to open it up for you to I want to again thank you for coming onto the podcast. And
my pleasure. This is fun.
Thank you. And two, I want to invite and encourage you to share with the folks where they can check you out, website, social media, all of that good stuff. The floor is yours.
Folks can check me out at Kip Omolade, KIPOMOLADE, on all platforms. And my website, kipomolade.com. That's where you can find me.
Well, there you have it, folks. I'm Rob Lee for Kip Omolade, saying that there's art, culture in and around your neck of the woods. You just got to look for it.